Battle of the Sexes. Now, you remember back in 2013, we did a show from Edinburgh Film Festival, and Billie Jean King came on because there was a documentary called Battle of the Sexes telling the story about how in the 1970s, Billie Jean King, at the top of her game, discovered that women were earning a fraction of what male tennis players were earning. So with the help of Gladys Helpman, she set up the Women's Tennis Association. And then along came Bobby Riggs, who was a former champion, now cooling his heels, wanted to get back in the game. And he said, oh, actually, I'm a male chauvinist and I can beat any woman, because the women were now getting, very good pay packets because the WTA was taking off. So he said, I can beat any woman on the court. Margaret Court took him on and it ended disastrously, at which point Billie Jean King said in the documentary, well, now I have to play him, which she didn't want to do. So now you get a dramatisation of that same story. I mean, when we did the interview with Billie Jean King, who incidentally was beyond breathtakingly wonderful. And I'm so jealous because later on you were walking down the street and she called out to you. She went, hi, Simon.
One of the most surprising moments of my life that she would even remember 1 week on.
Yeah, I mean, I can't begin to... That and Paul Weller called out to you in the street.
That's the only other time that...
Billie Jean King and Paul Weller have called out to you in the streets.
Yes, that's right.
I want your life. Okay, so now we have a documentary, which is... now we have the dramatisation, which is directed by Valerie Faris and Jonathan Dayton, who are the co-directors who made Little Miss Sunshine, and with a screenplay by Simon Beaufoy, who, of course, is a terrific screenwriter, Slumdog Millionaire, for Monty ages ago. And cast in the movie are Emma Stone as Billie Jean King and Steve Carell,
yes.
Thank you, as Bobby Riggs. Here's a clip from the press conference in which they announce that they are going to play the Battle of the Sexes.
Now, don't get me wrong. I love women in the bedroom and in the kitchen. But these days, they want to be everywhere. They want to be doing everything. Where is it going to end? Pretty soon, us fellas aren't going to be able to go to a ball game. We're not going to be able to go fishing. We're not going to be able to stop and have a drink after work. And that's what this whole women's lib thing is about. And it's got to stop. And Bobby Riggs is the man to stop it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Custer's last stand. This is the lobber versus the lever.
Keep talking, Bobby. The more nonsense you spout, the worse it's going to be when you lose.
Well, I'm the ladies' number one. I'm the champ. Why would I lose?
Because dinosaurs can't play tennis?
I'm going to put the show back in chauvinism.
You get a flavour from that of,
Good soundtrack as well.
Yeah, isn't it great? I really enjoy... I mean, I loved the documentary, and which was the first time I sort of knew about this story, but I thought the film did a brilliant job of bringing that alive. Firstly, the story is terrific, and I think the film tells it really well. The period detail is terrific, greatly aided by Linus Sangren, the DP, use of 35mm, and to get that real sort of texture. There's a thing in which he said he didn't want to make it feel like a film that was set in the 70s. He wanted to make it feel like a film that was made in the 70s. And I think he really does. I really think the texture of the film you can feel. Secondly, the script is terrific. I mean, Beaufoy is a great writer, and when he's on his game, he's really, really good. There's a brilliant scene in which Bobby Riggs, who's a compulsive gambler, is at this sort of Gamblers Anonymous thing, and then he suddenly does this brilliant speech in which he says to everyone in the room, you're not here because you're gamblers. You're here because you're terrible gamblers. The problem is that what you need to be is better gamblers. And I thought that whole sequence had a kind of cuckoo clock logic to it. I thought it was worked really well and was a laugh out loud funny scene. Thirdly, the performances are great. I think that Emma Stone really gets both the sort of physical presence and sturdiness of King, but also that generosity of spirit, that openness, that sense of not so much being an icon as being a figurehead, somebody that you could look up. You can understand both in person when we met her and also as she's portrayed in the film why it was that she became such an important cultural figure, why it was that she became such an important feminist icon. I think Steve Carell is terrific as well. In Foxcatcher, he disappears into the role of John DuPont. I mean, to the point that in Foxcatcher, I think I watched the first 10 minutes of it not knowing it was him. And in this case, he gets it exactly right. And it's not just to do with having the Bugs Bunny teeth and the strange sideburns and hair combination that Bobby Riggs has. It's to do with the physicality. It's to do with the stance. It's to do with that kind of slightly startled head back look that he's got. It's to do with the gambling gait, the sort of the clown, the perpetual showman that's physically performed by Steve Carell rather brilliantly. Fourthly, the film seeks to find parallels between the characters, both of whom are seen as having conflicting public persona and private lives. I mean, Billie Jean King is married. Her husband Larry is very, very supportive. But she's falling in love with Marilyn Barnett, who is played by Andrea Riseborough. And wonderfully, as they fall in love, the film seems to fall in love too. There are moments in it which have got this kind of floating focus and sort of 70s dappled backlight in which the film has a lovely sort of sensuous, gentle feel to it, which I thought has been overlooked a little bit. I thought that was really, really well done. Riggs is a chauvinist, there's no question about it, but he's also playing a character. And I remember very profoundly that when we did the interview with Billie Jean King, she said, you know, I admired him. He was a hero, and I absolutely took him seriously, and that's what gave me the edge. And in the case of this, what the film does is it has him as somebody who's he's actually completely dependent on his partner, on Priscilla, who is rather brilliantly played by Elizabeth Shue. He's seen as slightly pathetic. He's seen as somebody who just sees an angle. It's not that he's actually the male chauvinist pig that he paints himself out to be, no matter how much he may spout all this chauvinist stuff. It's that he's somebody playing a role. And you do get that sense that the film isn't demonising him. What the film is doing is portraying him as exactly as she says. He's a clown. He's a caricature. Can we just get this out of the way so then we don't have to think about it anymore? I thought that the way in which it managed to juggle those things about laughter and tears and cheers, because if you're not moved by it, you know, I think you're not watching the film. I was reminded of when you said to Billie Jean King something that I hadn't noticed, which is that tennis from back then seems terribly slow. Everybody seems to be going at a much slower pace. But I thought the tennis sequences work well. Bear in mind, I don't know tennis from a hole in the ground, so the match sort of recreation stuff I thought was done rather well. I thought it was really enjoyable, really, really well played. I thought the tone of the script was just so, and I love the look of it. I love the way it kind of captured that time and captured that era and captured that moment. And I was, considering how much I love the documentary, I had gone in suspicious and I came out won over.